In India, there's a serious threat of renewed fighting between Hindus and Muslims. It comes in the wake of bitter controversy over attempts to change the caste system. In the northern state of Bihar, militant Hindus want to demolish a mosque and to build a Hindu shrine in its place. India's 100 million Muslims resent the project, but a Hindu fundamentalist leader has begun a 2-week procession from New Delhi to whip up support.
A major cause of tension is a journey through the Indian heartland by the Hindu leader Lal Krishna Advani on this mock chariot. The object of the exercise is to drum up support among Hindus for the construction of the temple on the disputed site. This in turn has hardened opposition to the move among Muslims and pushed the country to the brink of a serious conflict. More than 50 people died in and around this northern town in clashes between Hindus and Muslims. Prime Minister V.P. Singh has made it clear his government will abide by the court verdict which binds the administration to protect the existing mosque until a final judgment is delivered on the matter. His officials have warned the chariot will not be permitted to enter the sensitive state of Uttar Pradesh, where the controversial mosque is located. Hundreds of Hindu extremists have already been arrested. Northern India, where all this is taking place, is a particularly volatile part of the country, and a tiny spark could set off a conflagration. Ashish Rai, ITN, New Delhi.
A court in Pakistan has ruled that the dismissal of Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto last month was legal. The High Court in Lahore said President Ghulam Ishaq Khan had sufficient reason to believe that under the Constitution, the government of the country couldn't be carried on and new elections were necessary. Although the former Prime Minister can appeal to Pakistan's Supreme Court, the ruling is viewed as a setback to Ms. Bhutto's attempts to return to office.
To President Ishaq Khan and his supporters, the decision is being seen as a complete vindication of the action he, backed by the army, took last August. He said he dismissed Ms. Bhutto's government for presiding over corruption, nepotism and abuse of power, and now the courts, albeit courts over which he has considerable control, have backed him. Ms. Bhutto can hardly have expected anything else, but the decision will encourage her tactic of turning her election campaign against the president himself, and she's now pointedly pledged to launch her own anti-corruption crusade. But Ms. Bhutto's repeatedly said she doesn't expect to be allowed to win. Indeed, with just over 2 weeks to go before polling, her People's Democratic Alliance is currently running 10% behind in the opinion polls.
Some business news now. Polypec, the troubled British group owned by Azil Nader, has sold its 93% stake in a hotel in Turkish-held northern Cyprus for $12 million. The finance minister of northern Cyprus said his government had bought Polypec's stake in the Salamis Bay Hotel. Polypec is negotiating with 60 London creditor banks over its $390 million short-term debt. It won a month reprieve on its debt arrears last week. In the United States, President George Bush has dropped 15 percentage points in the popularity polls because of America's troubled economy and the ongoing federal budget crisis. He'll face another budget deadline this Friday. If no agreement is reached, the government will close down again on Saturday.
Mr. Bush returned to the White House after a weekend of relaxation at the Camp David retreat. He may be glad of the rest, as this could be one of the most stressful weeks of his presidency. He took criticism last week for giving contradictory signals over taxing the rich. His trusted lieutenants remained in Washington to deflect criticism and prepared their lines for the big budget showdown.
The reason the president's been standing firm against playing around with income tax rates is that he knew eventually it would ripple down and affect lower and middle incomes.
There are now two competing budgets in circulation. One, devised by the House of Representatives, wants a surtax on millionaires and a top rate of 33% for the wealthy. But the Senate, also controlled by opposition Democrats, has taken the middle ground and produced a package which is probably acceptable to the White House.
We have a progressive table that those making the highest income will pay the highest increase in the tax.
So the scene is set for bitter debate and some late nights on Capitol Hill. One other figure could come into play, and that's a poll which apportions blame for the budget crisis. It shows that 23% of Americans blame the president for the mess. but it also shows that 61% blame the Democrat-controlled Congress. It's just possible, with congressional elections only 3 weeks away and Mr. Bush desperate to overturn the opposition majority, that he may not sign a budget by Friday. It would leave the country in a temporary mess, but might result in the voters replacing Democrats with Republicans on the 6th of November.